Have you been interested in using hobby cane and stained glass artworks? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you my tips in using hobby cane and stained glass artworks and the different types of hobby canes available that you can use. Let's get started.
Sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Steve. Today's video, we're going to talk about hobby cane and using hobby cane in your stained glass projects. Now I use mainly 5/64 inch hobby cane, but there are other types of lead edges or hobby cane available that you can use in your projects as well. It depends on the size of your project and the type of edge thickness that you really want on your stained glass project. Like I said, I use primarily 5/64 inch hobby cane and I buy it in large reels. It's worked out really great for me. The methods I'm going to show you today may not be methods that other stained glass artists use, but it's what I use and what works for me. So I hope you enjoy the video. But before we get started, I do want to let everybody know that SCOARTGLASS does have merchandise available. We do have some t-shirts out. Hopefully you'll visit the site and you can get to it through the link below, or you can get to it from SCOARTGLASS.com. Now, let's get into using hobby cane.
Now, what I like to do is I will measure out the size that I actually need, just approximation of hobby cane, and then I will end up stretching it just a little bit, and then we'll assemble it on. You necessarily may not have to stretch hobby cane because it is just an edging. So to really harden it up, you do want to stretch it, but it's pliable enough that you can actually just use it right off the reel. I buy it in this reel, and this is the 5/64 inch hobby cane. So what you want to do is go ahead and approximate by measuring out. I use a tape measure for like sewing or whatever, and I just run it along the edge just to get an approximation about how much hobby cane I actually need. And then once you kind of do that, then you're able to, say I need about 26 inches of hobby cane. I will probably have quite a bit left over at the end, but that's okay. But you can, if you don't want to stretch it, then you can actually use it right off of the reel. And you won't have as much waste from edging off your pieces. But because I do like to stretch it a little bit, I will cut off the approximation of how much I need. And then I will use what I call the GYD method to stretch it. And that is get your kid to help you. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. The other standard method is to actually use a vice grip on your table. Put it in on one end and then pull it with your pair of pliers on the other end. Unfortunately, I don't have a vice grip available to me right now, so I've got one on order, and hopefully I will get it here soon. It will aid in that, and I won't need to use the kid method anymore. So we'll get this stretched, and we will start to solder it on.
What you want to do when you stretch your hobby cane, and like I said, I use the GYD method, or GYK method, that's get your kid, and you just pull. Ooh. So it did break off, but it did stretch it. So so now it's stretched, and you can tell on here is that it actually became a little bit shinier after you stretched it.
Okay, so once you've done your stretching, then you'll see that you'll have some marks on your hobby cane that you're gonna not want. So you nip that right off of the end. That way you're starting with a fresh edge. So what I like to do is look at the piece, and I always start with my hobby cane either at the very bottom inside or you can actually stop at the top where your ring is, make it a fresh edge inside of there. So I'm actually gonna start actually on the bottom, just for the fact that it's actually gonna clog up that a little bit too much for me. So I will actually start on the inside. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna get it to a point and get a quick solder attachment to it, so that way you can adjust it. So just a quick tack on it, just so you can adjust it to get it set in there properly. Now once that's set in there, it sets up, then you can adjust your glass. So you want to make sure that you're getting your glass piece centered on that hobby cane. And you can just start wrapping it around. Now I'm going to come back later and actually adjust that on the end. But I like to make sure I'm getting it. And then when you get to a crease like that, you can kind of just bend your hobby cane down. And then what I like to do is I'll take my fit tool and I will hold this in place. And I actually got a blunt end on my fit tool. Just kind of melted it down to make a blunt end. And I will actually begin to crease it and blend it in as far as I can, and then start my next area. Now we'll be able to blend this in with solder afterwards, but that's a pretty deep crevice there. And then I'll get to a certain point to where, okay, this will be a good spot to put another tack mark. So then I'll take my pliers, or my pliers here, and I'll just kind of hold it in place. And I'll drop another piece of solder in that area, just to get it to tack up. And I'll kind of hold that in place. So now I know that's off over there. So what I can actually do now is I actually take it and heat this up again to loosen it so I can move it down. As you can see, it just moved down on me. So now I can play with it now and get it to come over on the other side. Not quite. There it goes. Now that should be good. Now we'll be able to play with it on the other side when we turn it over. So now you'll just want to continue and run your hobby cane around. And then now here, you're just going to estimate approximately how far down you need to go. I can almost get it all the way there. So, made my mark. I'll pull it back out just a little bit. So that way I can get a clear, straight cut. And then you get it and then work your way and fit it down in there. The rest of that will be able to be filled up by solder. And then actually hold it in that sense together. That way it's flat in. Just solder all that together momentarily, and then we can come back and clean up the edges. So now you can kind of shape some of these, and you can come back and fill in, and anywhere there's a solder line, you're going to want to attach it. That just makes sure that it stays attached to your piece. So now that we've got the edge completed, that's how you do hobby came edging. Now you can have the option of what I do, just to make sure I've got a really clean looking, is I will actually come back and I will solder a quick solder edge all the way around this. Some people do not do that. I do. I just think it gives a more finished look to it. And there you go. That's how you put cane edging on a sun catcher.
Well, I hope you found value in this video on hobby cane. If you did, ensure to hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, ensure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Here's what the finished sun catcher looks like. Now stay tuned for the next video coming up on your screen.